It's Tuesday, July 28th. The time is 5:27 p.m. and the temperature is 27 degrees Celsius. The plan for this walk is to turn east onto Bloor Street and head through the Bloor West and High Park and Bloordale neighborhoods over to Ossington Station. This walk should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 kilometers. This here is Bloor Street West. That's a look to the east. In that direction is the Humber River, and the next subway station, I believe, is Old Mill. That was Jane Station I was standing in front at the start of this walk. And this is the Bloor West Village neighborhood. So this neighborhood starts at Jane Street, where I started, and runs over to Runnymede. There's the entrance to Jane Station. Bit of a unique entrance. And the City of Toronto still is in stage 2 of its coronavirus reopening, so restaurants and cafes are limited to serving customers outside only. And I haven't been in this neighborhood in quite a while, but it looks like there's a pretty extensive patio set up across the street there at the Dark Horse. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a lot of those sidewalk patios set up in this neighborhood. Bloor Street is a major east-west node that runs through the City of Toronto. Although when you get to the Bloor Viaduct, it does change names and become Danforth Avenue. And that runs through Greektown. And eventually that'll take you up to Kingston Road, which is well into the Scarborough neighborhood, where I was last night on a bike ride. So the next subway station will be Runnymede. So this area is served by line 2 of the subway system. Those trains run east to west across the city. I believe it opened in 1966. And since then, this area has been intensifying and the retail stretch has been developing. Although it's still predominantly low-rise. Looks like this might be an area designated for a patio setup. Looking at the sky and based on the nice weather, you'd never would have guessed that it was raining quite heavily earlier this afternoon, although that was just for a brief period. So this here is Windermere Avenue. There's a Kachi Korean restaurant. They originally had a location in Koreatown that changed locations, and then the land was taken over by developers for apartments. They have another location in Chinatown. And this isn't a neighborhood I really visit a whole lot or know too much about. I just wanted to come here and check it out. So if you are familiar with the area and think you have something meaningful to add, please go ahead and leave it in the comments. Or if I missed something significant, again, I'm always happy to learn more about the city. Seems like the coast is clear to jaywalk there. I took the subway over to Jane Station on my way over here, and I didn't see a single person not wearing a mask. So that's an encouraging sight, although I do think the city perhaps wants to look at having some type of PSA campaign, as there's still a number of people that don't seem to wear their masks correctly. There's a Works Burger and Bistro. There's one of those down in the St. Lawrence Market neighborhood at Church in Wellington. And a New Balance store. Coincidentally enough, I'm wearing a new pair of New Balance for this walk. They just came in the mail today. Sometimes new shoes do a number on your feet the first few times you wear them, so hopefully they hold up. And this here is Runnymede. There's a two-story Popeyes over there. And that Shoppers Drug Mart looks to me in a rather interesting building. So for some reason on this line, they often build the subway stations just to the north of the main street. It's like that for most of the Danforth, and they're not particularly well marked on the street either. That bar seems to have a pretty good patio setup. It's a big open space on the rooftop. And there's another one, the Fox and John's. So you might notice there are no bike lanes on this part of Bloor Street West. But if you come back in a month, that should be a different story, as in the first week of August, the city is going to begin installing bike lanes. They'll be from Shaw Street, which is right around where this walk will finish. And they will run all the way up to Runnymede. Why they don't run all the way to Jane Street, I don't know, but with the extension eastward on Danforth Avenue, that'll give the city over 15 kilometers of uninterrupted bike lanes, which should do a lot to encourage people to get out on their bikes on the main streets, as a lot of people are a bit apprehensive about riding on the main streets. And this here is the Runnymede Library. It was completed in 1930. And the gentleman who designed it was the same one who designed the Royal Alex Theatre in the city. I think his name was John Lyle. He was known for a number of notable developments from the early 1900s. And that particular library was an attempt to sort of create a new Canadian style of building, which is a bit of a mishmash of existing styles. It looks like something you would see in small town Ontario, in those downtowns. And for this stretch, Bloor Street gets pretty quiet as we'll be passing through High Park, or along the northern edge of High Park. That bike shop, Wheels on Bloor, is probably one of the few businesses enjoying a boom during this coronavirus pandemic. They certainly seem to have a lot of stock. It's probably mostly higher end bikes. That truck is going way too fast. As most of the stores that would sell, I guess, more affordable bikes are completely sold out, and have been for quite some time. And from what I understand, bike thefts are on the rise, even more so than they normally are. So that's the start of High Park, just down here on the right. And this neighborhood is known as North High Park neighborhood. I say that with a bit of uncertainty because I'm not completely positive, but I have heard it referred to that, or to it as that. And it's a bit interesting as this is a fairly major street, but you do have homes and low-rise apartments facing Bloor Street, which you don't often see. And the stretch of Bloor Street where I started, had I have turned right onto Bloor Street, is like that for quite a bit. It's actually a nice stretch of road, but it makes for a fairly boring walking video, which is one of the reasons why I started at Jane Street. It's a pretty bold move, locking up a fairly decent bike in public here. So that is the start of High Park, just on the right there. Maybe I'll cross over and walk alongside that for a bit. Since we have the change of light anyways.
$70. Like, I was like, we're not getting a sweater that costs that much. I don't know if
You can't really see into Hyde Park all that well from here. But it is a fairly large park. There's a zoo in it, there's soccer and baseball fields, a number of different facilities like that. Plenty of trails you can take a hike and a walk along. Every spring you can go there and see the cherry blossoms bloom. Not this year though, as the city had closed that area off. There was originally 34 cherry trees that were donated from Japan, but now we're up to 50 of them, I believe. There's some trails that will take you up into Hyde Park. And in terms of size, it's a little under half the size of Central Park in New York City. This area to the north was originally all low-rise homes, but at some point in the 60s, most of them were raised to build these low-rise apartments. That coincided with the introduction of the subway line, which is just up here on Quebec Avenue, which you can take to get to the subway station. And again, there's no real signs or markings from Bloor Street that the subway station is there. Not too long ago, there was a recent wave of condo developments just to the north of Hyde Park. You can see a number of the newer condos there. It seems to have slowed down. The development has not slowed down throughout much of the city, but in this area it has a bit. It could have something to do with the NIMBYs fighting to keep developers from buying up large parcels of land. That is the Hyde Park Chess House. I have no idea what that is. You can get a look into the northern edge of the park. I haven't recorded any walking videos through here, but last year I did take my bicycle through here. And I think I'll do that again before summer's over. This here is Hyde Park Avenue on the left and Colburn Lodge Drive on the right. Looks like there's a bunch of ugly construction cones on this side of the street, so maybe I'll cross over. This is sort of the main entrance to Hyde Park. In the summer, there is a Shakespeare in the Park production that happens every year, but this year, unfortunately, it's been canceled. I wonder if these cones are in preparation of installing the bike lanes. not too familiar with which buses those are or what routes they run. So just down this hill here should be Keele Street, which will run to the north. And on the right should be Parkside Drive. And this might just be a good opportunity to thank everyone who's been tuning into the channel lately and who's subscribed. On Sunday it hit 10,000 subscribers, which was not a mark I expected to even get to this year at all. At the start of the year, it would have been rare to have days where I went over 1,000 or 2,000 views in a single day. And it's consistently been pulling around 20,000, with a few days even over 25,000 this past week. So definitely a big thank you to everyone for that. It encourages me to continue to make these videos. I'm also looking forward to getting out and recording more areas outside of the downtown area at the end of summer and into the fall. So you can look for walks through parts of Mississauga and Etobicoke and even Scarborough, hopefully by year's end, just to cover some more areas and explore a lot of places that I haven't even been to, or at least can't recall having been to. So just at the bottom of this hill here should be Keele Station. And there's been some concern with the new bicycle lane that they're going to install, as this right turn here, cars tend to take at a fast speed when they have a green light. It's also a very common right turning intersection, as in there's a high volume of cars turning right there, which poses extra safety concerns from a cycling perspective, as typically you would ideally have separate traffic signals for the cars and the bikes. So the cars should be held up and not able to turn until they have a green that would at the same time give the cyclists a red light. It prevents them from getting hooked. I think that's one of the proposals on the table. The other plan that the city initially drew up, I also think is pretty good. It funnels cars to the right and cyclists to the left. So before the intersection, they both have to sort of work their way over. But just being at the bottom of a hill, it's easy to see how a car could get a good bit of steam going, and if it has a green light and it's making a right turn, it could easily end up taking out a cyclist. Perhaps I'll cross back over to the south side here. There's a look at Keele Station. So that's the third subway station we've gone by on this walk. So Parkside Drive, which is straight ahead and goes south, runs along the east side of High Park. And that will take you down to the Queensway, and I believe all the way to Lakeshore. The subway is elevated over Keele Street through that section. For the most part, Line 2 on this end is underground, but there are some stretches where it pops up overground. You sort of see everyone pull out their smartphones and frantically try to get some kind of signal so they can fire off a message whenever the subway is above ground. But if you're like me and you use Freedom Mobile, they're the one cell phone provider that works in most of the subway tunnels in the city, or at least in the downtown area, and they've slowly been building out support for tunnels and subway stations outside of the downtown area. So there's a suburban style strip mall with parking in front. You don't see that too much in the city. As you go east and west and to the north, you start to see it more. We're still quite a ways west of downtown, so I guess it's not that uncommon. So as I was saying, if you live downtown, I think Freedom, or if you take the subway downtown, I think Freedom Mobile is a good choice. Their coverage used to be pretty spotty. There seemed to be capacity issues and all kinds of coverage issues for the longest time, but since their LTE network has rolled out, it seems to be patched up, and I rarely, if ever, have any issues with it. And there's been times where the Blue Jays have had a playoff game in the early afternoon, and I'm off work trying to get home to watch it, or to the bar on the subway, and I can pull it out and stream it on my phone when nobody else on the train could even access it, so that was pretty cool. That was about 3 years ago, right when the signal started working on the subway. There's not so much in the way of bars and restaurants operating sidewalk patios this way. It looks like this place might have tried at some point. I'd be curious to know what the rent is in these buildings. As location-wise, it's really pretty good. You've got a nice stretch of retail right here, and you've got subway stations. I'm sure there's a large supermarket somewhere around here. I know straight ahead on Dundas there's one. So coming up is Dundas Street West, and just to the left will be Dundas West Station. And if you turn right, that'll take you down to Roncesvalles Avenue and Roncesvalles Village. This is one of the unusual spots where Dundas runs north to south. Again, I'm not sure why this area to the right has been coned off. It might be for purposes of installing the bike lane that they're going to be doing next week. These apartments here are known as the Crossways. If you're ever curious as to what some bad apartment reviews will look like, just jump into Yelp and type in the Crossways apartments, or just Google Crossways apartment reviews. It's pretty much 1-star reviews across the board. It would probably be 0 stars if people could enter that. There's a lot of complaints about poor management and maintenance and just general living conditions. So that's Dundas West Station just up here on the left. From there, you can catch the Line 2 subway or the King streetcar that'll run down Roncesvalles and then along King Street over to Broadview Avenue and then up to Broadview Station. And on this side, we have the Bloor West Go and Up Express station. The Go train is a commuter rail train. That runs out to the suburbs and to downtown, and the Up Express is the train that runs from Union Station to the airport. So you can hop on it just up here. If you're going to the airport, it'll cost a little over $5. Whereas I think it's $12 if you take it from Union Station. One of the big downsides of this station is that it's not connected to the subway station. So although the stations have the same name and it might appear convenient to transfer from one to the other, there's no above ground or underground direct connection or tunnel or bridge or anything. So if it's raining or just crappy winter weather and you've got your suitcases with you, you're going to have to come out here and trudge through the elements when you transfer from one to the other. That's really the one big knock. There's a GO train there. The Up Express uses, I guess what you could call bespoke diesel trains. They're really only used in one other place in the world, just north of San Francisco. So they have different platform heights. So this is the Dundas West, or I guess they call it Bloor, GO Station and Up Express. Just above us is the West Toronto Rail Path. There's a nice trail you can walk or take your bike along. It runs from just north of here, which is an area known as the Junction Triangle, and it'll take you down to College Street. I believe there's a plan to expand it all the way towards the southern rail tracks in the city along Lakeshore. I recorded a walking video along there last year, and I might go back and record another video there this year. I think I went there in the fall. So if you're interested, you can check that out. I think that guy honked at me. I'm not standing on the road at all though, so I'm not sure what's up with that. I was right on the edge of the sidewalk though. But thanks for honking. Guess he has no confidence in his ability to take a corner. I think this housing development on the left is particularly not appropriate for a major street like this. It's always good to see a level of retail at street level. Just sort of adds to the community. It sort of feels like we've entered into a bit of a black hole in terms of walking along this stretch. You can see the markings in here for the new bike lanes that'll be coming up. So continuing in this direction, once, or if you were to go past our destination, which is Ossington Station, that'll take you along Christie Pitts Park, and then you'll be in the Koreatown neighborhood, and then just past that will be the Annex neighborhood, and then Yorkville, which is sort of the high-end shopping area. And that'll take you to Yonge Street, where you would then cross over and find yourself on Bloor Street East, and that'll run over to the Bloor Viaduct, where Bloor Street becomes Danforth Avenue. I think once this bike lane is installed, I'll have to do a bike ride that goes from end to end across the whole 15-kilometer stretch. Curious as to how long that would take. Probably somewhere around 40-45 minutes. Last night I recorded a ride down Eglinton Avenue East, which has been dubbed the worst road in the province of Ontario. And it was a bit of a hair-raising ride as the road conditions were absolutely terrible. I did record that. I'm not sure if I'll have uploaded that before this video or not. But if it's not up at the time this video is, just look for it. It should be following in a day or two shortly after. So the next major street we'll be going through is Landsdowne, where you'll find Landsdowne Station. And this area is known as Bloordale Village. And that right there is Club Paradise. You can probably guess what type of place that is. I think it used to be called the House of Lancaster 2. There was a House of Lancaster 1 that got taken over by developers and turning into women-designed condos on the Queensway in Etobicoke. That might have been the developer's way of taking a jab against a former adult establishment. That's kind of a neat mural they're putting up. So not too long ago, this area, which is Bloordale Village, had a lot of art galleries and art studios in it. It was sort of known as an up-and-coming place for artists. However, eventually rising property values and rents drove most of them out of the neighborhood. So I don't think there's too many left here. I'll see if we can spot some. There's a large outdoor patio dining space across the street. This is Landsdowne Avenue here. So just to the left would be Landsdowne Station. And again, that's another station that's been sort of buried to the north of Bloor. So there's not too much further to go. The next major street where there's a subway station will be Dufferin Street. And then a short walk after that will be Ossington Station, where this walk will end. I seem to have picked the wrong side of the street in terms of catching these sidewalk patios. There's another one across the street there, although no one's using it. And I was completely wrong about that previous establishment. It looks like the House of Lancaster is still here. I just didn't think there would be two places like that close together, but there it is, House of Lancaster, Gentlemen's Club. So at least this location lives on, although it's clearly not open lately. There seems to be an effort to have some sidewalk art put in this neighborhood. I'm always curious what people are thinking every time they lock their bicycle up in this city. Just knowing there's such a good chance someone's going to come and take something from it or take the whole bike itself, or just leave you with a mangled tire and frame and nothing else. There's a lineup to get into that cycling shop. There's another sidewalk patio. I've been there. The name isn't coming to mind. And this place here, Burdock, I'm quite sure they have a patio around the corner. I've definitely been here a few times. They do, but they don't seem to be open. It's a bit surprising. I wonder if that free speech is an expensive sign alludes to cases where the Canadian government has deemed it necessary to fine people who have been found guilty of speech that could be interpreted as hate speech. There was a comedian, I don't remember the details too clearly, but he made fun of, or I guess he made a joke towards someone who was disabled, and he ended up pretty much having to pay his life savings worth in terms of a fine, which has led many to believe that Canada doesn't truly have free speech. The other side of that argument is that you could argue that Canadians have freedom from hate speech. I think that's the angle the government would take. And this here is Dufferin Street. So just to the right is Dufferin Mall, and you can take this all the way down to the Dufferin Gates at Exhibition Place, where the CNE is every year. That's the entrance to Dufferin Station right there. And to the north, this will take you all the way up past Yorkdale Mall. And when you get to north of the 401, it just sort of inexplicably comes to a stop around Downsview Park. And then it starts up again somewhere on the other side, so you can't continuously take it across the city. There's the Gladstone Library. That one's even older than the library we went by at Runnymede. That one was completed in 1912. And they added that glass box edition sometime around 10 years ago. And this is Gladstone Avenue. So I believe if you take this south down to Queen Street, you'll find the Gladstone Hotel. Which is sort of a landmark boutique hotel in that area. The neighborhood we're entering is referred to as Bloor Court Village by some. And just to the north is Dovercourt Park Village. Not sure that's the best way to cross the street in your bike, but I guess he made it. Well, the good news is these new shoes have held up for this walk. My feet aren't sore at all. That's one of the reasons why I buy New Balance shoes. I always get the same. There's 3 different models I get. The 420, the 574, or the 373, always a size 11. They always fit like a glove, and they last for a very long time. There's St. Anthony's. That one is a Catholic church. I'm pretty sure someone just didn't decide to take their wheel out and lock it up. And I am dying for a cold drink. Probably want to pick up an iced coffee on the way. Of course, it's a bit more of an annoying task these days than it used to be. This area typically comes alive at night. There's a lot of bars. There's a lot of divey kind of bars as well as a few good craft drinking spots. So this right ahead is Dovercourt. He was ringing his bell as he was going through the door zone, just trying to let drivers know he was there so no one pops open their door. Here's a useless fact. I think there's an Enterprise rent-a-car just up this street. It's mostly a residential street, but I seem to have a memory of dropping off a car there and walking back this way. And on the corner there will be the future home of what looks like it's going to be a Tokyo Smoke, which is one of the many cannabis chains that have popped up all over the city. I'm surprised we haven't really walked by more of them on this stretch, as they've become pretty unavoidable throughout the city. It's certainly a very lucrative business to be involved in these days. There's Disgraceland, which is sort of a vegan bar slash restaurant. When I lived in Koreatown, which was just about a 7-minute walk straight ahead, I didn't really come up to this area too much. I always tended to go the other way towards the annex in downtown. This is Delaware Avenue. You can get on the subway there. That's one of the entrances to Ossington Station, but we'll head in the main one on Ossington Avenue.
Are you going to finish your food? Yeah, I heard it's really good.
It's Long and McQuaid, one of the city's well-known music shops, probably the most famous one. I think I saw a location on the east end on either Kingston Road or Davenport Avenue, way out in Scarborough yesterday as I rode by. And this here is Ossington Avenue. So I have done a narrated walk that started here before and headed west. So if you want to see what the rest of the street looks like, that was a bit earlier. I think the city was still on stage 1 at that time. You can look that up. If you take Ossington south down to Dundas Street, in between Dundas and Queen, it's one of the more popular streets in the city in terms of, I guess it's younger culture, it's hipster culture. I'm not sure the correct way to term that, but there's a lot of craft breweries and boutique type stores that appeal to that crowd. So let me just throw my mask on and head into the subway. I want to go eastbound to Bloor Station. From there, I'll transfer to the northbound line 1 and take that up to Eglinton Station.
Help stop the spread of COVID-19. Please wash and sanitize your hands frequently.
All right, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.
The next station is Parkside Station.